I just felt cold. And then Carson, baby B, they basically showed me his face, but he was already turning a little bluish and he had fluid in his lungs. So they immediately rushed him to the NICU. So I just felt detached from their birth, to be honest with you, which was like really hard for me.
Welcome back to another episode of Moms on the Mic with Mariah, part 2 of Karen. I am really excited for you guys to listen to this episode. It was very informational, honestly. I didn't know about VBACs or cesarean twin births and what can happen to your child, being airlifted out to another hospital directly after birth and how challenging that can be. It was crazy to hear that someone has had so many different births and labors. She's a mother of 4. She's humble and she's very positive. And I'm really excited for you guys to listen to this. And I hope someone takes away something about labor and birth. I just want to remind you guys that we're not medical professionals. We're just women telling our stories. And so everybody's labor and birth is so different. Mine was completely different from all of hers, but her story is just really interesting. And so I'm really excited for you guys to listen to this. And I took a lot away from it. And so I hope you guys do too. Enjoy listening.
So we're going to transition now into your births, Karen, and I'm happy to have you back to talk on part 2 of more baby deliveries. So the crazy thing is I know we talked to you a little bit about Eliana and her birth. So let's talk a little bit about your other deliveries, like what exactly happened. And let's focus first on your episiotomy. And I know that's kind of like some weird shit to like go into right away, but like you had mentioned that you had gotten an episiotomy and this doctor basically like cut you to your asshole. So like, what was that like for your recovery?
That was rough. Honestly, like it's just like the ice packs and the stool softeners and all those things that you need. I think that what helped distract me from that was the fact that Eliana was going through so much. So I focused a little bit less on myself, but man, when you sleep on a chair for like a week and that is just an intense amount of like just pain. It's uncomfortable every time you sit and stand and walk and just do everything. And it takes like for your stitches and everything to completely come out, I feel like it takes 5 to 6 weeks. And then even then you still have all that scar tissue, all that sensation that hurts. Like it does not feel good.
I mean, what is this like as far as this recovery from this episiotomy? Because, and I know that you said you sat and stuff, but like when you had sex for the first time after you had an episiotomy, what was that like? Because I had so much pain from a no tear delivery. So what advice can you give to someone with that?
Oh my gosh. My doctor just gave me at my 6 weeks clearance checkup because I also had stitches this time. And he was like, lubricant. Like literally because I feel like it is just going to be uncomfortable at first as like, because it's still scar tissue and you're still going to have sensation. He told me even for like the next 6 months. And the first time around, because it was such an intense cut, I remembered it like still having that scar tissue sensation and it was uncomfortable. So like my advice would be like what my doctor told me, lubricant, like just at least like initially for like the first like month or 2. And then I feel like everything after that was just fine. You still feel the sensation, but you're not like in pain.
Yeah. Cause I don't think anybody ever talked about that with me of like, what was sex going to be like after you have like an episiotomy or after you have kids and it hurt. So
it does.
I can't imagine like having stitches and having a lot of tears. I had no tears. So it was a different dynamic for me.
I think that 6 week recovery period really helps. Like really does. They do it for a reason.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you need time to like heal. I mean, you just pushed a kid out. So
yeah, definitely.
What happened with the twins? So you had a vaginal delivery, which obviously went to hell in a handbasket with Eliana and your episiotomy.
Yeah.
What happened with the twins? Like, do twins run in your family? How did you get the twins?
Oh my gosh. Like finding out we were pregnant with twins was the craziest thing ever. Yeah. Just like, no, but Brian was. I was like, so after Eliana, we actually had another pregnancy, and I miscarried. And, that was another emotional toll on both of us. And then, after that, when I got pregnant again, I was just so grateful and happy to be pregnant that I just like, I was just excited. But then obviously then you have this new set of fears that comes on, like, is this baby going to stay? Like, am I going to lose this child? Like, just like, you don't know what's going on. So that was another moment where I hit like another dark period and had to turn to my faith again. And I remembered finding out that I was pregnant, and we went in for that 8-week ultrasound, and I was just like terrified they weren't going to find a heartbeat. And then the girl is doing my ultrasound, and I have Brian and Ellie with me in the room, and Brian's like, that's so weird, it looks like 2. And the girl's like, it is, I'm just seeing if there's any more. And I looked at Brian because I was just happy that there was like a heartbeat, and you know, that I was just grateful for that. And then I look at him, and his face is like white, like so stoic, like so shocked. It was honestly just like insane. But then we get home and we like can't believe it. But then we also like, I just cried because I was like, after so much trauma and like heartbreak, I was just like crying because I was like grateful that we had been so blessed with not 1 but 2. And this pregnancy was very different. Like, I still got sick, not nearly as sick. I was able to eat meat. I was able to do all my things. This pregnancy, I feel like, was just hard in the sense that your body grows fast. Like, you start showing fast. And I feel like by the time you get to 7 months pregnant, you feel like you're 9 months, and then you still have like 2 more months to go. And you're like, how can your body like possibly stretch this much? But it's like literally a miracle what our bodies can do. It's crazy.
What did you notice about having twins? Like, what are things with the pregnancy of a carrying twins that you didn't realize? So I know you said you got big really fast. Like, what other changes did you notice to your body that were going on where you're like, what the hell?
Severe back pain, like so much back pain. I would literally have to like laugh because at that point in pregnancy, you have to sleep on a side or on your back. And if like at a certain point in pregnancy, if I was laying on my back, I literally couldn't turn myself over. Just all the extra weight and all the extra back pain, I feel like was really hard because I feel like my back was even messed up for a while after that.
What were they saying about your diet when you're carrying twins like that?
So your diet should stay the same because the way they explained it to me was like, your appetite shouldn't grow technically in pregnancy. Yes, you will have cravings. You can satisfy your cravings. But like, if you think about how small a baby's stomach is, they're not going to need you to overindulge. Like, whatever nutrients you normally eat, they will get nutrients from that. So with twins, it is a high risk pregnancy. So every single month I had ultrasounds, which gave me a little bit of peace of mind because we were constantly looking at twin A and twin B every single month. Like, in a full 1 hour appointment every month, we would look at both of the babies. So developmentally, and we knew like there was nothing wrong with like their head, like with Ellie. And, you know, that was a beautiful thing where I was able to have peace of mind in that area. But other than that, I feel like I just took it one day at a time because I feel like with twins, you never know how far into your pregnancy you're going to go because a lot of the times they're born premature. So I was just trying to do everything I could to make sure I wasn't overexerting my body to go into preterm labor, and I was spending a lot of time resting. So I just felt lazy. Like I was like really lazy, like where I feel like I wasn't trying to go into labor, especially at that point we were in Texas, and it was just me and Eliana. Brian was working and we didn't have family around, so we didn't have our community. So it was just like, I was trying to do everything I could to like not put myself into labor with like too much activity, you know?
And what did they say about your delivery? So do you even have an option of delivering vaginally? What did they say about that?
Yes. So I did want to do a vaginal birth with the twins. And one of the babies, baby B, was the baby that was sitting on top, which was Carson. He was breech. So once one or both babies is breech, it's automatically a C-section. But literally the morning that I went in for my C-section, they did another ultrasound on me and they were like, you're not going to believe this, baby B flipped. And so they were both head down. And I was like, how did they have room to flip? Like at 37 weeks with twins. Like I was like so sidetracked because I was like in my head, I prepared myself for a C-section. And they, at that point, gave me the option. And I remember them going over my risks and they were saying, well, since baby B flipped, you know, you could deliver baby A and he will have room and he could flip again. So keep in mind that you could deliver one naturally, but the other could still have to be a C-section. We just don't know. And to me, they're telling me that I might have to recover from like both deliveries. And that's where I was like, I don't think I could do both. Like, if I knew that they were both going to be stay head down, I would have done vaginally. And looking back now, to be honest, I wish I tried to do it that way because the C-section recovery was so hard on my body. And like, it's like a major surgery, and that incision was no joke. You can't, like, laughing makes you cry in pain. Couldn't walk upstairs. I felt so helpless. I couldn't pick up my daughter because you use your ab muscles when you're doing all these things that you don't realize. And so everything was so painful that I just, looking back, I wish I would have tried to do vaginal for both and just to see if it would have worked.
What is the likelihood of, do you know anything about the complications of delivering vaginally twins? Obviously they worry because the baby could go breech, but like, what is the deal? Do they make you sit in an operating room already as you're delivering, or like, how do they brace for complications?
So they gave me a spinal block, which technically that's what they give you for a C-section because it's a strong medication that works for 1 to 2 hours for the time point of the C-section. And so basically they were just saying I could try to do it. Oh my gosh. Okay. So basically they were saying I could try to do a natural delivery, but they were recommending more on the side of C-section just because of the risks that were involved, because there could have been so many problems with baby B. So this is where I feel like they lead with fear. Like he could turn, he could have a lack of oxygen if there was a lot of blood loss after twin A, or sometimes like you don't know the size of your babies. Like if one gets stuck, which I mean, I never was concerned about, but I feel like there are a lot of risk factors and they just pretty much encourage you that a C-section is just easier. So to be honest, I was just trusting in the medical professionals, and I was just terrified to have 2 recoveries, so that I went ahead and opted with just doing a C-section.
Oh my God. Okay. So these C-sections terrify me, to be honest. And
Yeah.
I, God bless the women who have to go through them or choose them, right? Some people choose those. So that's good too. So I'm going to respect everybody's opinions on this. So when you go in for these C-sections, like, what the hell is going on in the room with twins? They've got probably a lot of people in there, I'm assuming, right?
Lots of people. There's an extra because they have to have 2 respiratory nurses, like 1 for each baby, and 2 of this type of nurse, like 1 for each baby, because there's 2 babies. So I felt like the amount of people doubled. But honestly, it's intimidating. Like they put you on this table, you can't see anything, you have a tarp over your face, you're freezing cold, and you just feel like you don't feel the incisions or anything. You feel so much tugging and like pushing around and tugging and pulling and like all these sensations. So like that goes on for a while, but once they're born, it's so fast. It's like 1 twin and then a minute later, the next twin. And it's like, honestly, such a whirlwind. It's such a whirlwind that I feel like I wasn't able to take it in. But the way I described the whole experience to me, and the reason why I don't like it, is that it was just like a cold experience. Like I feel like you're not emotionally attached. You don't get to like, you have this big tarp. Yeah, you don't get to hold the baby. You have this tarp over your face. So you're not really looking at anybody besides like a doctor's eyes when they're like, you okay? Like, it's just weird. And then Brian's sitting next to me and I'm like, you know me, I'm like, take pictures. Like, I want to see this process. Like, this is like fascinating. But like Brian is like queasy and he's like, no. And he's just like trying to put his phone over the tarp without looking. Cause I like looked back at the pictures and they're pretty crazy. Like, it's pretty like gruesome looking. Cause I was just curious because I didn't feel attached to it. And I like wanted to see what was going on. So I had him do that just so I could like look. But I was like, oh, it's kind of gross. Like all the blood and all like the different things. And I was like, I know my incision was a little bit wider because they had to get through. Each kid was in their own sack and they had to get to both of them. So I know my incision was slightly bigger, but I just felt cold. And then Carson, baby B, they basically showed me his face, but he was already turning a little bluish and he had fluid in his lungs. So they immediately rushed him to the NICU. So I just felt detached from their birth, to be honest with you, which was like really hard for me because I feel like here we go again. Like, all my babies get taken from me right when they're born. And like, you know, it just, I want to be able to like bond and connect. And I don't feel like I got that from that experience. So it was just like an emotional disconnect for a while. And then obviously like all the fear sets in because like baby B got like, I saw his face and then he gets taken away and they don't really say much to you. Like they kind of try to be really discreet about it. And then you just notice like your kid's missing. And then like they wheel me back to the recovery room and had me try to breastfeed baby A. And then they noticed that he was having a hard time breathing because he had fluid in his lungs. So then he got rushed back to be with his brother. So they were both in the NICU for like 6 days, 6 days. Yeah. So I feel like I brought them home by the time they were a week old.
So
crazy.
they take the babies. How long did that C-section take?
The C-section, the total process was an hour, but like there's lots of tugging going on for the first like 15, 20 minutes. And then baby A comes out. A minute later, baby B comes out. And then it's like taking out all the placenta, like, because there's 2 placentas, taking out both placentas, like the blood. So like that's the thing is after a C-section, you don't bleed nearly as much as you do with vaginal. Like after a vaginal birth, there's like bleeding for 6 weeks for me and like some clotting. But like after the C-section, I feel like there's not a lot of bleeding.
When did that pain set in? I know the positive probably is that you're not bleeding as much because let's be real, I was wearing diapers for like 6 weeks. Yep. And I was shitting myself because like poo would just fall from those like hemorrhoids and like pushing so hard, right? So like
Oh man.
the bad part of a C-section is the movement, the coughing, recovery.
The coughing, the laughing, that like all of that, because you don't realize how much you're using your ab muscles. And so that hurts, like even for the first like month. And you still have all that scar tissue. It's still sensitive if you go to like stretch all the way back. Like you can't do certain things for an extended period of time. And then them telling me I couldn't pick up my kid because she was more than 20 pounds and not to lift anything more than 20 pounds, you know, and like all these different things. As my 2-year-old's crying because she wants me to hold her and comfort her, I'm like, that doesn't fly. Yeah, it was just honestly just like a lot harder for me. And I had 2 babies that I was trying to like run around and feed. So I just felt like I wasn't on my feet as quick as like I was before.
So you definitely would say at least try. That for you personally, you wish you would have tried. What else should someone know in terms of like what to bring for the hospital for recovery for twins and a cesarean?
Oh my gosh, twins, just like 2 of everything. But I feel like the nice part is the hospital provides anything you don't have, but you're going to need to put some ointments on those scars and make sure they're constantly bandaged. So it's like all the extra gauze. And I even use those like C-section scar strips after you get past like the first 4 weeks when the stitches fall out, making sure you're keeping your incision dry and clean because nobody wants an infection. Because like I had a friend that talked about her infection in her scar and I was like, that is just not the business for anybody because they have to go back and cut your tissue and restitch you, like no joke.
I didn't even know this. I mean, I knew you'd probably get an infection, but I wouldn't think that like dry. So what happens in the shower? What do you do?
You still like obviously clean your body, but I was like, I didn't use any soaps with any fragrance or anything in the beginning because I was like, it's so sensitive and everything like it just like burns and hurts. And then you just like dab it and make sure you're keeping it dry, changing bandages because like sometimes it can ooze for like the first few days, like if they just close it, but you don't really want to get to that point because that's where it like leads to an infection. So just keeping it dry I feel like was really important. And then pain relief, like you're going to need some ibuprofen or something because especially for the first like week, I feel like I definitely needed it. And I'm not normally somebody that even likes to take Tylenol when I have a headache, but like after a C-section, I felt like it was helpful.
Do they give you restrictions on the pain meds if you're breastfeeding or no?
They do give you a specific medication. I can't remember what it's called, but yes, they do. And I know that ibuprofen is what was like recommended as opposed to any other medication. And I know even after birth, they'll even give you Motrin, but they definitely limit your doses because obviously like through your breast milk, they don't want to like give too much to the baby.
Oh my gosh. This is a lot with these C-sections and people schedule them. Maybe they're just used to the fact that that's all they know. Cause do you see why people would schedule those now? Like from
Well, some doctors, they lead with the fear tactic, to be honest with you. So I feel like it depends on who your OB is and make sure you have a good one because Even for like trying to do a VBAC, I know some doctors like don't always feel comfortable with one. For uterine rupture reasons, infection, blood loss reasons, there's more risk with VBACs, especially the first one after a C-section. And then it also increases your risk when your pregnancies are closer together. So I think that some people are just like, oh, once a C-section, always a C-section mentality. So then they just schedule it. I personally know somebody that has had both and she prefers C-section. And like her and I just like agree to disagree. But yeah, everybody's different because like I know some people like that it is able to be scheduled too. So, I mean, to each their own.
Yeah, I think, the point of Moms on the Mic is we just share our own experiences. If people want to go schedule their C-sections, do you? But I am probably more of your opinion. I've never had a C-section, but I probably would just want to deliver vaginally. It seems like that flush of your body, like flushing that stuff, sets your body better for a recovery too. Like it kind of is like pushing everything out,
Right. And the healing is easier. Even with an episiotomy, that sucks. But I feel like it's a little bit easier to deal with than the other incision from a C-section. So I personally just felt like that was a more difficult recovery. And then even after like you get out of your surgery, they put these like compression cuffs on your leg for that first night for so many hours, and they have them running on and off and on and off to prevent from like blood clotting because like C-sections also have other risks too. So babies in general are just like bringing them into the world. There's so much that goes with it. It's just so you learn as you go. And every time I feel like I just learn new things.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. And then to do a VBAC too. So you had another baby, which is amazing. Yeah. I know you got blessed with another child. So What was your doctor coaching you on now with the VBAC after a cesarean with the twins and Eliana having her vaginal delivery?
Yeah, so the OB, like my primary OB, was really confident in a VBAC for me just because she said, I'm confident that like you're healthy, like everything would be good. You've had 3 years since your last delivery. Oftentimes, like if you have complications during pregnancy or if your pregnancies were closer together, I might sway you in the other direction. But because it had been 3 years since my last delivery, and she also said the other risk was if it's a big baby, right? Because if a big baby could cause also a uterine rupture, like it increases your risk, she said. So my doctors did not think that this baby was going to come out at 9-8 at 38 weeks. He was 2 weeks early, but that's the funny thing is every time I feel like they measured my babies in an ultrasound or even like when they do the tape measure, I was like, how accurate is this really? Because they told me Eliana was 6. She came out 8'6". They told me that the twins were like 5 each. They were 6'4" and 6'8". And then they were like, this baby, they're like maybe 8 pounds. And he came out at 9'8". So like the minute he came out, the doctor was like, that's a big boy. Like bigger than any of us thought. Like I was stunned with how big he was. Cause like he comes out the size of like a 1-month-old. Yeah. So I did have to get some stitches with that one, but not like the first time.
Yeah, that is, what I guess I found really interesting about your VBAC is like the cramping that you had mentioned to me before. So why don't you tell the podcast listeners about the cramping?
Oh my gosh, post-labor cramping. So I didn't even realize that this was a real thing, but like as you're breastfeeding, your uterus is obviously contracting down. And I didn't experience this the first 2 times, but it was like having contractions all over again. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, ow, like every time like he breastfed. So I was like, breastfeeding was like not fun for the reason that I personally don't enjoy it in the first place. And the cramping was so intense. And then I feel like once it got to that night, like all the meds wear off and they're like, do you want some medication for the pain? And I was like, no, I'm fine. But then as I kept breastfeeding, I was like, it was getting more intense. And I was like, this is like contractions all over again. And the lady laughed at me. She's like, would you like your Motrin now? And I was like, yeah, I'll take a dose. Like, thank you.
That's crazy.
I didn't even realize it was a thing until I heard another mom of 4 talking about it and how like with each pregnancy, it actually gets more intense. And I didn't even realize that was a thing. So I learned something new this time.
Was your labor at least faster though? Because your body is
labor was so quick, so relaxed. Like I remember them telling me, oh, I see the baby's head. And then she was like, oh, you're at 10. Like, do you want to hold on for a second or should you start pushing? And I was like, oh, I'll wait till you get the doctor. And like, we just like, it was just laid back, like really easy. I felt honestly like really connected to this experience. The first time I was just like terrified with like the students that came in that was intimidating. The episiotomy threw me off. Like when she was born, like that whole whirlwind. The twins was like a cold experience. And this one, I was just like, I felt so connected. Like each push, like as he came out so quick. I got to hold him right away. It was really calm. This was my only no NICU baby. All my other babies were NICU babies and didn't get to come home for a week. And this was like the first time I actually got wheeled out of a hospital with a baby in my arms, because every other time I was like by myself. So I was like, that was another cool full circle moment, like where I was able to have the experience that I like envisioned.
Yeah, what a blessing. I think we take that for granted. Like I had a horrific postpartum and a horrific pregnancy, but like my labor was very simple, like in terms of no complication, no tears, 5-minute pushing, but like taking that baby out of the hospital is a blessing. Like I look at these mothers and the things they deal with and I'm like, God, I wouldn't even think about that. Like, cause it's normal to me. It's a blessing.
Each little thing, I feel like that's why like it's important not to take it for granted. And like, that's why we're always supposed to be thankful, is because like all these little things we expect are not always like guaranteed. So it's like, it's really important. And like I said, like another thing that just brings you closer to your like, or brought me closer to my faith journey was just like each miracle that I've experienced after each trial that like came with us. And I feel like it really prepared Brian and I every single time. Each trial just brought us like closer. So it's like, it feels so good to be like where we are now and everyone to be healthy. And so it's just honestly such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I'm really happy with you. And I'll finish our segment by just saying, asking you, what is something you're well-wished for someone dealing with these deliveries, right? Like what advice would you offer to a mother with a cesarean or VBAC specifically? What advice would you give them on their deliveries?
I feel like my advice would just be not to be scared or not always think that your doctor knows what's best, because personally, I feel like it's a lot easy and our bodies were meant to have these deliveries. So not to be like afraid of them if we can go that route, because I think that it's just a more connected experience. It's an easier recovery and it's just like such a beautiful, beautiful thing. I feel like doctors don't always know what's best, and that sounds so hard to like for some people, but I feel like we need to just trust our bodies and our ability and what they were built for, and sometimes just go for it. No fear.
Yeah, well, I'm really happy that you got that experience of being able to push a baby out and take them home with you, in the proper time, like the normal, right? Quote unquote normal time.
Thanks, me too.
Yeah, like what a blessing. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And like your experience, I'm sure is going to help a lot of women listening or put their minds to ease about doing a VBAC or even a twin pregnancy. So thank you so much for coming on to Moms on the Mic.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited and I can't wait to hear everybody's stories.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome to hear.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of Moms on the Mic with Mariah. We will see you all back here again next Monday. Go ahead and follow us on Spotify, Apple, and any major podcast platforms. On Apple Podcasts, rate and review us. Follow us on IG, YouTube, and TikTok at Moms on the Mic with Mariah, and let me know what issues you guys would like to hear on the podcast and any feedback. And also, if you'd like to come on and tell your story, go ahead and throw me a DM. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys next Monday. Another story from another lovely person. See ya.